Have you ever thought about buying commercial property? Let's hear from Billy's journey being a first-time commercial buyer. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Burgio Billy Drury, episode 1618, the journey of a first-time commercial buyer. Billy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the introduction. Look, this is a good topic. Commercial real estate. It's always been, I think, a tricky asset class to break into, and you don't hear first home buyers doing it. You don't hear, I think green buyers doing it, but everyone had to have a first time. So we're going to unpack it this morning.
Well, whenever you hear people buying commercial property, everyone just thinks, oh, it's the wealthy clients. That's not for me. Whenever you hear any knowledge or education or deals on buying, it's first-time residential buyers, first time this, first time that, and commercials just sort of left aside and put a little bit in the too hard basket or too expensive basket. But I think what will really surprise people is you don't have to be super wealthy. You don't have to inherit family money. You don't have to be buying something for millions of dollars. The commercial market, there is a really, really attractive entry level for it could be as low as $100,000, $200,000 that you can get into the market. And so let's hear directly from Billy, first-time commercial buyer. How old were you? Did you inherit a fortune from the family? And what did you buy?
Yeah,
Take it
look,
away.
I'll give you a quick snapshot. 18 months ago, got introduced to the idea of buying a commercial storage unit. So it's a 22 square meter storage vault. It's got a 4.5 meter ceiling, so you can put a mezzanine through it and double your floor space. But the price point was $200,000, and that was like, all right, well, let's go down the route of trying to secure this as a first commercial asset. But where I think this is really good for first home buyers, and where I think this is really cool, there you go, there's a little bit of an example. It looks like a fancy garage. That's what it is. But where I think this is a really good topic to unpack this morning is commercial real estate is a great avenue for a business owner or a couple or a single, looking to establish a self-managed super fund, because you can actually buy these assets under those names and it doesn't affect your personal borrowing entity. So if you've got a passion for buying property, or you've got plans set 5-10 years ahead to go and secure your dream family home, or make an investment move, this can actually be done outside of that.
I think just keep it a bit more personal to yourself. Why did you buy it? What were you shocked that you could buy something for $200,000? What was in your mindset? Because you're also looking and bought residential. So what were the key differences you noticed for yourself? So more keep it just what was going through your mind buying the asset. So first of all, the price. So what was it, $200,000? Were you a bit shocked you could buy anything at $200,000? And does that even make your money? Does that go up in value? What was the rental return? Tell us, Billy.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's not much in the residential sector, particularly for Sydney, to buy at $200,000. The reason I got in on this was because I could set up a self-managed super fund. I had a small enough deposit with a 5% deposit to get the exchange done, and then I knew through the build time I'd be able to save the remainder and complete in about 18 months down the line. So with the projections on the rental return, the other nice thing from an investment perspective, the very low outgoings, given it's just a concrete box, it doesn't have a huge upkeep like a residential property. I kind of saw it as the perfect fit, and really couldn't find excuses not to explore the avenue.
And was it one? Obviously, it was in your super fund, but let's say it wasn't in your super fund. It's because it's such a big leap from you could buy a storage unit for 200,000 to really get into the residential market. You need 600,000. So it's not really, I'll just wait a year to buy residential. It's like
That's right.
there could be 5 years before I can buy a residential property again. I'm better off potentially turning 20 grand cash into a $200,000 storage unit. And like, how much what was the rent for it that you originally got per week?
The rent was $270 a week plus GST.
Yep,
So
270. So that's 14,400 a year. Let's say over 200,000. Like that's a 7% return, which is amazing compared to residential where it's normally 2%, 3% gross. To get a 7% return on that type of money is a great opportunity.
But also with the attitude of holding it longer, you know, I've seen firsthand from landlords in our office, there is upkeep to residential property. You're managing, you know, I like to think of it as a property provider. You're responsible for maintaining a good home for someone to live in. You know, there's an occupant there. So with this type of asset, there's far less maintenance. There's no flushing toilets, no lights that go down in the evening, no one that's going to get stranded. You know, ultimately this is a big boys tool shed. And you know, I think being an entry level price point, it can afford to be an entry level rent for the area as well. So you'd think that your tenant pool will be a bit larger.
What about the loan process? How was that? You've gone through both scenarios. Was that more difficult?
Yeah, it was. It definitely was. You know, these guys are assessing you. When I say these guys, Liberty Financial was the lender. We put it out to a different panel, you know, selection of panels, but they're assessing you on, you know, you being the director of the company. So I think there was a little bit more rigorous financials involved compared to a PAYG salary where you can just provide pay slips and call it a day. But we got there in the end. What I did find is that having utilities made a big difference. So if you can be, you know, looking for an asset that has water and power, that makes a big difference to the loan to value ratio that the banks will give you. So we ended up getting a 70% LVR. But I found without the utilities, it was coming in at about 60% for.
So what do you mean by that? So if someone's looking at a storage unit, because some come with data, some do come with, sometimes there's water in the unit. A lot of time there's not. So you're saying just having, what was that again? The utilities, because that's quite unique.
Yeah, if you can find a unit with utilities, so a water line directly into the unit. The broker was advising that the banks see that as a positive and can potentially give you a little bit more to borrow against the unit.
Okay, and you mentioned you did it in your super fund. Now, was that easier than expected once you got in touch with the right person? Did it take longer? Or is it because I suppose a lot of people just put it in the too hard basket without really looking into it? They just think it's too big of a deal. What would sort of be some advice out there or some of your experience?
My advice would be, look, lean on the shoulders of an expert. So you need an accountant that specializes in that space. And if you don't have one, you know, you can actually then almost contract that part of the job out to another specialist, but, you know, still maintain your relationship with your existing accountant. Give yourself double the amount of time you think necessary. So if you've got intention to buy, you know, and you think it's going to take a month, give yourself 2, because the hardest part is just getting the entity name set up. And then on top of that, you've got to have a bare trust, and it's the bare trust that can borrow in the SMSF names. So there's a little bit of work involved. Give yourself double the amount of time, and it will avoid a scenario where you get it wrong. Because if you do get it wrong and you exchange, you've effectively got to rescind and re-exchange in the correct name, because otherwise the contract won't mean anything. You can't get the loan.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where a lot of the time people only look to do this when they've already found the right property. It could be the neighboring property comes up for sale and they go, oh, I want to buy that. And I had a buddy who they were going through a property and it looked like they were going to miss out. And I said, that's okay, because you've gone through the hard stuff. You've engaged your accountant, you engaged your broker just to get all this stuff ready. Yes, it would be great if you can buy that one, but if not, at least everything is set up so it's ready for the next purchase. Because as much as you can advise people, like, get it all done before you find a property, we all know it tends that people tend to get triggered to do it once they've found the property. And I think that's great advice. Allow more time. It's one of those things where you just can't rush it. You're waiting on many third parties. You can't just put pressure on one phone call and get it done tomorrow. And if you have unrealistic deadlines, it can really just blow up the deal. Because I've negotiated a lot of deals, and whenever, let's say, a buyer is or knowledgeable or upfront, and this is where I got better as an agent. Even if the buyer didn't know how long it would take, I knew how long it would take, so I could then advise. Because if you go and owner say, I'm having to pay this, we'll be ready to exchange in a month, let's do all this paperwork in the interim, it's no problem. But most of the time it's no problem. But when a buyer says, I'll exchange next week, I just got to set this up and it should be fine, and then it's like delay, not ready, that owner has just got a bad taste in their mouth, because they're thinking it was supposed to be done last week and it's dragged on, and it can really poo-poo a deal just not having that timing right.
Massively. And you know, to take it from A to Z, to get the funds even into an SMSF, you've got to then inform your current super fund that you're going to be exiting away from them, moving the funds across. You can imagine the amount of security questions. I mean, think about just trying to get into your emails these days. You've got to do two-factor authentication. Try telling your super fund. Yeah, I can hear you. I just can't see you.
Okay.
But try telling your super fund that you want to take your funds out. You know, the amount of questions that's involved. There's a lot of security around that, and rightly so. But as you said, there's a lot of moving parts from a lot of different people. So, you know, it's unnecessary pressure from a buying perspective to have those extra complications, and from a vendor's perspective, it takes away credibility from the buyer and the offer if they're not ready to go.
And so I think that's great for someone to hear it from someone in their 20s, buying commercial property, using their super fund. It's possible. You don't have to be ultra wealthy. You can buy something for under $250,000. And we haven't even touched on the benefits of, you could lease it back to yourself, put more money in your super fund. Now you've got an asset that goes, like, the great thing, what I love about commercial property, it doesn't matter if you buy something for 200,000 or 20 million. Your returns tend to be the same. You're looking for that 5 to 7% rental return, and doesn't matter what price point you buy. So you've now secured an asset where a lot of people, they buy their first residential property and they go, can't do anything for 10 years. Don't even think of their super, or don't even think of they can do anything with that 20 grand cash they got left over, because they're like, well, I can't buy anything. You've now got an asset which is returning you 14 grand a year. So what's that, over 10 years, that's 140 grand a year income coming in, rather than just having that 20 grand saved there, not including the growth. Like, commercial property does go up in capital growth. Because there's two ways a commercial property is valued. You've got a rental yield, and then you've got a rate per square meter. And depending if a property is leased, like, it can be a little bit confusing. It's like, well, when do you use which rate and how to look at it? The answer is you use both, but it's sort of a little bit case by case. But just from, like, I've sold a factory 3 times in 15 years, and the first time I sold it, it was 360,000. The last time I sold it, it was like 1.2, and they were all vacant every time. So there is capital growth. You do get strong rental returns, so it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, if you pick the right project, you can build equity in before you've even finished. You know, most of the early investors on this project in French's Forest have done 20% capital growth from their time of purchase off the plan to settlement. So there's equity to be built there, and good case studies. It's not a fluke. You know, there's science to the madness.
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea. buying commercial off the plan, because as you said, it can take a long time to set things up, and there's a lot less pressure buying off the plan than when you're in the secondary market. But I think that's it for this morning. Just a good little video, good case study from the one and only Billy. So congrats.
No, look, guys, I think, you know, the takeaway message from this is there's no age limit on it. And there's really no, I think, income limit and deposit limit.
Yeah.
Like, you can do something with as small as 20,000. So it's a good avenue to explore. You're not hindering personal borrowing capacity. It's not impacting other, you know, avenues or other plans you might have. You just got to get in touch with a good, savvy accountant, solicitor, and sort of broker. And from there, it's the dream team. Off we go. And we've got properties that we can help you with. So if you're looking now to put this into place, give Michael or myself a call. We will get you into the next project. It's coming online 6 weeks, and we will be going again.
Right on. Thanks, Billy. Cheers, everyone. Bye.